speak truth. Move in silence, 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 speak truth. Yeah.
Jojo, how you doing?
I'm doing good, man. How are you?
I'm doing absolutely fantastic, thank you.
Oh my God, you have a British accent. I can't.
I have a British accent, yes, that's correct. I can't get away from it. All these years and it's stuck with me.
Oh, bollocks!
Well, it's how I got my wife, so I'm happy. It worked.
Whoa. Okay, I'm looking at that opportunity there. You just gave me like a brilliant idea because I have a Spanish accent which is underutilized, and I feel like.
Yeah.
Welcome, Keith.
Welcome, thank you.
Jones. Keith, this is Brandon. Brandon, Keith.
Hi, Brandon.
Hi, Keith.
Hopefully that's not your voice is not the only reason that your wife was attracted to you.
I'm still trying to fathom that out right now. It's taken me some years, but we're still in analysis.
OMG. Wow. Just for context, Brandon, I know Keith from Nebraska. I went to a Toastmasters meeting in Nebraska and Omaha, so he's an Omaha guy. And Keith, I know Brandon through a good friend of mine, Michael Fedek, and he connected me to Brandon, and Brandon said he'd be interested in joining our Zoom today. So
Sure, I was kind of voluntold. Joe said you're on it, and I'm like, okay.
I feel the same way.
Whoa. Well, yeah, so the thing is, I sent you guys both recordings. Like, it's crazy because, you know, people can't make it to every single Zoom. So it's like every Zoom, I always have like new people. So you guys are like, it's like your first time experiencing this Josias, you know, this is.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
I'm not too good on first time experiences at this point. We'll see how it goes.
Okay, we'll see. We'll see. All right. So, tell us a little bit who you are, and then we'll go ahead and get started. I have a great thing planned out, but just tell us a little bit about you, like just elevator pitch, who you are, what you do, and what makes you special, and then we'll get started.
You can go first, Keith.
Oh, gee, thanks. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Well, my name is Keith Jones. I am a longtime Toastmaster. I've been in Toastmasters for 37 years, so I've seen that experience for quite some time. I retired 8 years ago. Finally got away from that 9-to-5 job at a cubicle, and so that was kind of an experience. My wife said it was an adjustment period. She said if I didn't work well at home, then she was going to send me back to work. So it was only a temporary thing. Apparently, I've done well because I've been out for 8 years. So that's a good thing. I am an author. I have co-authored 10 different books that we've self-published. I actually do the self-publishing, putting the manuscript together and the cover and all of that stuff and putting it out there on Amazon.com and Lulu.com. Our series is Spotlight on the Art of, and we have 10 different topics. Our latest one is Spotlight on the Art of Leadership. Everyone shows you all sorts of people tell you what you should do as a leader. The question is, how do you get there? And our book on leadership was our journeys to get to leadership. Gee, now that you're a leader, here's the things you need to do. It's like, wait a minute, how do you get to that point? And that was the thing that we really concentrated on this particular book. We've done things on grace, resilience, significance, fear, generosity, or gratitude, generating energy, speaking, telling stories. So we've got quite a variety of books that we've written. It's a group of about 9 to 13 people that we have collaborated. Everybody has written a chapter on their experiences with each one of those topics. And it's been quite the thing, and it's really progressed since I retired, because it was like, okay, what are you going to do in retirement, right? You're going to sit and watch TV, or are you going to write books and publish? So we had a good experience at that.
Brandon.
Well, first, Keith, wow. that is some accomplishments right there. I gotta say, I'm very, very impressed. So I don't think I'll come very close to that, but just a little bit about me. As you can tell, my funny accent, I'm originally from London, England. I literally grew up on the other side of the bridge from Big Ben, so I could see Big Ben from where I was. We didn't need any clocks in our house. That thing was loud. I got myself into the network marketing space, into direct sales.
Oh, wait, Brandon, by the way, every and ah and every filler word you take, Keith is keeping track. So just beware.
Thank you. I'm going to be a little focused on that, and I've come down a lot from some of the filler words I've been using. I'm like, what am I saying? So please keep me accountable. I appreciate that. So, see, now I'm even more conscious about it. So I was in the relationship marketing space, had a great time there. Learned so much through personal development. I wasn't very good at it, to be, but I got to meet a lot of people. I had more confidence in myself through personal development, and then I moved from the UK over to Canada. I was in Canada for about 17 years. Where I met my beautiful wife in the same industry. We had two beautiful daughters, Avantali, and we gangbusted out of Canada, I think about maybe about 4 years ago. And we went traveling around the world. What an experience. Getting to see the world through my children's eyes was very unique. And then we make our home now in beautiful Playa del Carmen, Mexico, where we've been here for about 3 years now, and we decided to make it a home. Beautiful people, beautiful culture, beautiful food, and we're only 8 minutes away from the beach, so we can't really complain. But with that being said, I love helping people. I love training people. I love teaching people. The thing that I love the most is taking people who don't have confidence or belief in themselves and finding a way to break through that. And I had a show called The Breakthrough Show with Brandon V. I had people on who would talk about, we would have discussions about where they were, how they had suffered in life, what they thought was there for their life, what they did to break through, and how they utilizing that success to help other people. That is kind of my key thing. I'm a fan of the underdog. I believe I'm an underdog as well. So if I can help people break free from what's up here and show them the proof and ignite the flame of belief just a little, then I feel like I've done my job. So that's just a little bit about me.
That's beautiful. Okay, so that ties right into what this is all about. Last week's topic was emotional intelligence, and this week's topic has been mentalism. And what I did was, for mentalism, I took Tony Robbins as an example, and then I have like somebody like Oz Perlman, who's like a trick, and then Tony Robbins uses kind of like a mentalism framework to do this intervention. So I think in something you just said was that, having those emotional breakthrough, and that's exactly the topic for today. So let's just jump right into it.
Fantastic.
What I want to do today is something fun. It's Friday the 13th, and I want to find where I put. I wrote a little note here. It's finding the magic in the unexpected.
Yes. Scary, but yes.
Welcome, Malisha. So here's the framework. This is the brainstorming session of ideas, and we're gonna start out just like this. Brainstorming session. We got a cloud up top. We have a garden, and then the cloud represents the new ideas that are raining down. There's a garden, represents the emotions, the flowers, and the emotion. Then we have a farm, represents the farm products, the animals, and the plants. In the middle, we have a house. In the house is where everything comes together. We take the plants in, we put them in a pot, all the emotions after they grow. We take the food that we get, like the meat and the vegetables, we'll bring them in and we eat it, and we process everything in the home. And this is the process, this is the framework that I was developing today. And we want to layer this with intention, and the intention is creating a world together we can all benefit from. The intention is this Zoom will be recorded as a podcast. So we want to create a world where, let's say, if Brandon or Keith or Malisha or Andriana or Monica were to watch this again, they can draw value from it right away. Also for anybody else, for example, your audience, Brandon, or your audience, Keith, in your books, or Brandon, in your calls or in your organization, they can just immediately say, whoa, okay, that was powerful. What can I get from that? Oh, that's great. I'm going to apply that into my life. The way we're going to flow it, as early birds, we're going to plant the first seeds here, and then we're going to feel them out. How do those feel? So let's say for example, in a garden we got the emotions, and in the farm we can plant thoughts. So what would be some thoughts that we could plant today to start this off, in this conversation where we can create this world? But let's start from the bottom, from the simplest thing. We have the soil, which is like could be like the beliefs and values that we can establish, and then the water will be the nourishment. Go ahead, Brandon.
I've always looked at everything. I mean, just for me personally, I always believe that one of the core things, number one, is belief, is that word belief. I personally believe it is the most powerful word on the face of the planet, because whether you believe you can or you can't, I'm sure we've all heard it before, you're right. But from belief, you can totally destroy everything. You completely destroy it. Or from belief as well, start something amazing that is literally the seeds that you plant, that is the beginning of everything. And I think this is something that in society we've lost, because we rest our beliefs on other people's thought patterns or other people's narratives. And we lean too much as a crutch on other people's, because we've lost the thought pattern or how we can think of things ourselves or believe of things, and we create other people's narratives within our own mindset. When you have a slight doubt in yourself as a person, all it takes is somebody in your sphere of influence to say, yes, actually, you can't do that. Now it locks it into stone. This now has become a fundamental fact of how that person is, and they will truly believe that they can never ever break free of that. So as the core, belief is huge, good, bad, or ugly. It is the key to everything. So that's just kind of stop that up.
Along with that belief is, what are your values? One of the things that I was confronted with was this one guy said, well, you need to know what your values are. And I'm like, well, what are my values? And a lot of people think that, well, they look up to someone else and that someone has certain values. So they, instead of determining their own values, acquire someone else's values. That could be political, it could be social, whatever you want to do. But that belief in someone else's values can sometimes either lift you up, or it can take you down to some place that you really didn't expect yourself to be in. And therefore, you struggle to get along with people that may not have the same values that you do, which is causing conflict. And you don't necessarily have your own values because you've acquired someone else, and you follow them because you believe they're the leader in your life. You have a tendency to look at social media, you look at news. If you have certain beliefs, or if you're following someone else's belief, then whatever they throw at you, well, I believe in them, so, and I have their values, so therefore I should think the same way they do, instead of thinking for yourself.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's very easy for other people to imprint on it. Again, it comes back to that whole point of not having your own self-confidence or belief in yourself, that you can look at different things and you can take little bits and pieces. Sometimes, again, you're 100% right. When you look up to somebody, you kind of put them on a pedestal, and whatever they start to believe, you start to copycat, because a lot of times we want to be that person. We want to be that speaker. We want to be that author. We want to be that actor. We want to be that singer. We want to be that successful person. So we believe that if we want that, we have to copycat, which now means we have to take their, as you say so eloquently, we have to take on their values and their beliefs, hoping that we will be able to achieve the things that they're achieving. But, I always heard in my life that you got to copy the right cat.
That's right. You got to copy. That's crazy. Okay, so to jump back into what you said, Brandon, crunching on other people's thoughts and patterns, like even if it's Tony Robbins or Jim Rohn or anything like that, we forget that we also have greatness inside of us, and we start thinking that their way is the only way that works. But then like whenever we get the insight of and it's some people never get this, because we get so conditioned by, we get addicted to learning from another person and thinking the only way to do things is the way because it works. However, we can find like the answers that we're looking for with our own creativity and imagination. We can use the stuff that other people used in the past, but we don't have to make that like our own thing. Secondly, what you said, Keith, so acquiring someone else's values, like going on social media rabbit holes on YouTube, and then like, Ben Shapiro or like, Logan Paul, and then just saying like, whoa, like, okay, and then just kind of like applying, like, then we kind of like absorb their mindsets as our own. And I think mindset, which ties back to the topic of this week, is mentalism. In the Kabbalion, we have the phrase of all is mind, which is the principle of mentalism. And Tony Robbins phrases it in a different way. He says everything is psychology, which is basically the same thing. So what we're doing today is, like Stephen Covey would say, like, the map is not the territory, but we are mapping the territory here. Even though, like, it is not, like, it is never the same, but we can still map things out. So what I would, go ahead.
You kind of click something in my head when we're talking about, a lot of these personal development gurus and these people who do this. One thing I believe, personal development is a fantastic gateway, okay? It's a fantastic gateway. But what I've seen is a lot of people, because they look at these personal development people as celebrities. And this is where, exactly to what Keith was saying, is that you start to take on their values. Okay, you start to hear what they hear, you start to imprint it on you without actually having your own values. So you've got this empty vessel, and you're like, let me take what you believe and what you have, and let me put it into here. And now I just start to duplicate what you do, instead of me just being me and finding me. Because when we get into the personal development loop, what happens is personal development is supposed to get you to a place of understanding, self-awakening, understanding who you are, how to introvert your look to understand who am I, not who are you and how do you see the world, is who am I, because my experiences are different, my path is different, my end game is different. So when we're on that situation, there's people who just go from personal development to personal development, they're reading the books, they're buying the books, they're going to the things, they're always like, oh, I gotta get that. But then when you actually take a look at their lives are still pretty much in the same place. They're just a lot more positive about it. They haven't really moved on, because when we talk about implementation, because it's really not inside there, because they're not implementing it. And with this, if a personal development coach holds on to you and never lets you go, he has failed. The whole goal of personal development is to help you get to that point of self-awareness so you can understand how to see yourself, how to view yourself, how to gain your own personal values and understand what that is, so that now you can formulate your own path, and now it becomes a self-feeding engine, that you're no longer shackled to personal development gurus. And you kind of hit on that when you talked about the personal development people. So yeah, it just really brought that to mind.
That's powerful, Keith.
And one of the things that you have, we're talking about planting seeds, right? I have three grandchildren, 4, 5, and 6. So I told my kids, my son and my daughter, I said, here's the deal. Watch what you do in front of your kids and instead of what you tell them. They will not listen to necessarily what you tell them, but they will reenact, they will absorb what you do around them. They will learn from your actions, not necessarily from your words. And I told them, I said, think about what I was doing to you when you were growing up. Was I telling you a lot of things, or was I having you do things? At one point in time, I took a computer, set it down in front of my son, and I said, figure out what's wrong with it. He goes, that's not fair. You know what's wrong with it. I said, yes, I do, but you don't. So figure it out. I would have my son, a vacuum cleaner broke, and I'd set a vacuum cleaner down in front of my son, and I'd say, okay, here's the deal. There's a plastic part that broke in this, and that's why it doesn't work. Find me that plastic part. And he would proceed to tear it apart. We ended up taking the motor from the vacuum cleaner, put a long extension cord on it, and ran it up and down the driveway. I mean, as I told my kids now that you have kids, what are you doing in front of them? What are you doing as actions that they will absorb? And it's the same thing with what you're talking about, Brandon. People will absorb things from other people instead of thinking about it. They will use that personal coach, read all of these self-help books and everything else, but it never really soaks in. They really don't start to think for themselves about their actions that they're taking, either to themselves or to the people around them. So you can learn a certain amount. At some point, you've got to cross that threshold into confidence in your own abilities and in your own thoughts and your own beliefs. It's sad to say that most people never cross that. They just buy books by all sorts of people and read them and think, you're right. They become very positive. People, other people being
Other
positive,
people being positive.
which is good. What you don't want is, and some people get into the negative part of life. Everything around them is broken, and they can't see a way out of it, and so they take it out on the world around them, which was really sad.
I always think that, there's a lot of people when they get into these things, they get very cerebral and they get a little spiritual and they start to attract things. I'm attracting, I'm manifesting, I'm attracting, I'm manifesting. I always say, look, listen, there's a reason why the word action is in attraction, okay? You need to take the action in order for attraction to work, because, if it's got to sit within your DNA. It's got to sit within your cells. It's got to sit within you that you have that belief that it changes your frequency. Because when you're in a space where you have a lot of other people, then you get group synergy going on. You got a lot of really excited people who walk out the building who are still excited, but they're not really sure what they're excited about. I bought the book, I got the t-shirt, yay! But then they go out, they get into the real world, and they're like, oh, bam, we got hit back into that again. But when something permeates you, that it impacts you, there's a difference. There's a toward you and there's an impact you. When it impacts you, it gets inside you. You've got all these disbeliefs in front of you. You've got all these barriers, all these failed successes, and all these things in front of you that this impact has got to punch through. And when it gets through and it gets into you, now that seed's been planted. Now, I truly believe that when you get out, when something's been really planted, this is something that's far bigger than all of us. Now you walk out into the world, you walk out into the universe, and things get attracted to you to continue watering that. And when it continues to water and then it starts to fruit, then you've got that belief. It's like, hold on, this is me. This is not that person trying to convince me. There's not that person trying to tell me. This is something that I feel intrinsically within me, that I feel moved to take action on something. When you do that, your frequency changes, your vibration changes, and just a beautiful world starts to open up. So I think it's really, really important that when people are speaking, that they understand, I'm not here to make money, I'm here to impact lives, and I'm here for them to have an end game. Come in through this gate, open up, understand, have self-awakening, have self-understanding, as Keith so beautifully said it, and that's huge, is create your own values. Understand what your values are, not somebody else's. But then there's the exit. Go be free. Go find you. Don't find me.
Malisha, did you have a thought?
You're on mute, Malisha.
Yeah, okay.
Malisha, we can't hear you. You're on mute.
Technical difficult. Okay, let's go to some questions here. So Andriana says, okay, let me just read. Can you?
Sorry, I was muted.
Yeah.
You look great though. You really meant what you said.
Yes. So,
Yeah. Oh, by the way, she's 50. By the way, just so you know.
51.
51.
Well,
Mother of 3 children. My oldest daughter just turned 30. I have a 26-year-old, and my son is going to be 23 next month. Yes. As I told you, Josias, I would take 100% accountability. I am in between travels. I am in the sunny Miami, Florida, headed to the Bahamas next stop within a couple of minutes.
Nice.
So I wanted to jump in, say hi, and I completely agree with you, Brandon, about, I think it's how I feel. I think I have some animosity towards X, also known as Twitter. I feel like those people... I'm not going to say those people, but I feel like if you attract what you want. And I feel like that's a realm of negativity. For me personally, I feel like, yes, there's things going on in the world, but I believe what you attract, is also very powerful. And if you want to think, oh my God, negative, you're going to attract negative. Because of the way I was raised, I'm just like so free-spirited, and I look and I see the good in others, and I like to give people the benefit of the doubt. So, I think it's super powerful. I don't feel that I need to be validated. However, I feel that, you can read as many books as you want and, show up that way. But I feel like more importantly, you need to feel what you read, And then if you don't feel it and you can't use positive towards it, then what are you really doing, So that's my little hi.
Hi. What a great hi.
Hey, Joe, just a point of meeting here. Are you recording this?
Yes, sir. Yes,
How
sir.
are you recording this?
OBS.
Oh, okay. So it's not through Zoom?
No, not through Zoom, yeah.
Okay. I just didn't see the record on here, and I was like, crap. Okay, so if you're using OBS, that's fine. I understand.
Thank you. Thank you for caring, Keith.
It was like all of this important information, and it's not going anywhere.
It is not going anywhere. It's being neatly recorded and stored into this beautiful cloud, this Zoom cloud. So, okay, well, let's go to this question here. Andriana wants to know. Andriana, you can ask questions yourself. You can just like use your voice. However, if you don't want to, then I can ask your questions for you. But I feel like you're prompting me here. Like, I'm ChatGPT. So, do you want to go ahead and ask your question or?
Thank you, Joe. It was less of a question and more of a comment. So I was listening to everybody speak, and I think I agree with a lot of those things. It is important to figure out your own value. It is detrimental to figure out what goes with you and what doesn't. But I think that one of the reasons why we go and seek out personal development and seek out and entangle into what other people values is, it's because we don't necessarily like the ones that we grow up with. They don't quite settle right. And so one of the reasons why I myself went to self-development is so that I could get to know myself and figure out values I was going to keep and what values I was going to take away because they didn't serve me anymore. And it's very important to figure out the steps that I'm going to take next. And I think that going out there, doing the courses, reading the books is just the first step. It's like bringing the awareness. Once you have all of this information, and yes, it may take a couple times of going to the same course to figure out and to actually understand yourself, because every time you repeat the course, you're not the same person. You already observed the first part, and even if you didn't make any changes consciously, you make changes unconsciously. And so bringing those changes to the front, it's what makes the difference, because now you have a choice. You have the choice to keep the values that you had or remove them. And I think it's important to point out, or it would be useful to point out some of the ways that we as a group or individually have learned some of those new things and how to implement our new value, or even better, how do we let go of some of the old values that no longer serve us. Perhaps sharing some of our personal stories, because lots of people give us general information, but they share stories where I believe are the gem that are not necessarily shared by everyone else.
I agree with Adriana. I am an author as well. My book is called The Path to Resilience and Independence. It's my story. I was in my 20s. I married an older man, 10 years older than myself. And everything that I believed in or was raised, I was raised Catholic. And it was a very strict Spanish Italian family. And, I went through changes in my marriage. I stayed. I had 3 beautiful children from this man. And I learned as I got older, and now I'm in my 50s, I had learned through the recourse or everything that I went through. I feel like I went through the experience and I wanted to be a changed woman, because I used to look at myself and I used to say, God, why am I here? Why do I stay? I deserve better. I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt to find out that he was diagnosed with bipolar, schizophrenia. So that's on a more personal level. And then as I grew older and I journaled, I realized that, those are the things that I didn't want. I no longer served that purpose. And I sought to find God and also spirituality, because I feel like what you give to the universe, you get back, or send it to the universe, and you'll be open to many opportunities. It depends how you view it. My people.
Well, okay, so let's go back a little bit. So Andriana, I love that. Like you need the stories to reinforce the concept, because we could talk theory all day, and then unless we tie it into something tangible that we can see, which is precisely what this framework is about too. I'm trying to put together abstract concepts and give it the framework of the garden. So what you said, Brandon, about you're talking about going into and falling into loop patterns, which is what we talked about on Wednesday. And here's a good framework for a good metaphor for this. there's a trick in mentalism called the 9 trick. So the number 9 is a whole number, and the number 9, whenever you multiply it by any other number, you know this trick? You know this, Brandon?
I've heard about it, yeah.
Yeah, so whenever you multiply 9 times 8, for example, and then I realized in the recording I did the wrong results, but today I'm going to correct it. So 9 times 9 is 81, and 8 plus 1 equals 9. You know, 9 times 7 is 63, and 6 plus 3 equals... So in mathematics, we have these patterns, just like we have in our lives. And then now, like, so let's say if, like, for example, here's a pattern, like talking or getting into relationships with emotionally unavailable people, going and making a lot of money and then going back to broke. You know, like, those are patterns that we get into, and then we just keep reliving over and over, like the number 9 loop. The next thing is, I think you said it. You said children don't listen. Children don't listen. They model. Like if you tell a child something, they're not listening to what you're saying. They're modeling what you do. So if you don't have like a 2-parent household and the dad is treating their mom, if he doesn't have a positive role model of how he's treating his mom, then he doesn't know how to treat a woman good until he actually sees that model in his life, you know. You know, same in a negative aspect, we have, like, if a gang member grows up around gang members, like, he's gonna be a gang member because that's what he's modeling, you know, unless he sees a different example of something to follow and make a decision.
Just touching on that real quick, I mean, you know, the patterns of the 9, and those different patterns, and I think that what happens is that once we get into a pattern or we meet some people, and, you know, I'm stuck with this value thing that Keith talked about. I'm like, oh my gosh, I see it everywhere now, right? So I can pull something from my eye, like, oh my gosh, I see that. So it's like when you imprint those values on yourself, and 9s find 9s, 8 finds 8s, 7s find 7s, and they stick together, which means that they're sitting in that holding loop pattern because they're like, well, this is my group of people. And we've all heard the saying that, you know, if you are the sum total of the 5 people you hang around with. And I think that's really, really true because I've done that, and I've been in places where I've hung around people and doing things that maybe weren't the best for me. And then I had to literally delete their phone numbers from my cell phone and move area so I wouldn't even bump into them and really put that brick wall. And only when I did that did I stop doing the things that I was doing because I was no longer surrounding myself with that. So I think we find the patterns, imprint the values on ourselves, and then stick within that. But again, you know, going to what Andriana said is she's 100% right. You know, we need to get into personal development first. It is a gate inwards because we need to understand, well, what is the blueprint? How do I break this cycle? Hold on, am I even in a cycle in the first place, right? You're going to have that self-awareness that you're in a cycle. Then you're going to realize that it can be broken. Then you're going to realize, so kind of coming in, understand that, setting the blueprint, and she's 100% right. Sometimes you're going to go through one. Sometimes you're going to be like, okay, I'm different, or I don't quite get it, I'm not quite getting the results, I'm not quite there yet. Let me redo that. And again, through the experiences you've had through doing it the first time and through life in the first time, you go do it again as a separate person, which now means you understand things in a different way, which is why I think people read Think and Grow Rich 7, 8, 9, 10 times, right? Because every time you're reading these books, you're getting something new, something different. And you're getting that, but then once you get to that point of, I have the blueprint, now I understand, now I'm out, now I can grow as me. So, you know, patterns, you're 100% right, and Andriana is 100% right too.
Wow, and then go ahead, Andriana, go ahead. Well, she raised her.
I think that one great way to summarize that is that when we start our personal development journey, we first start looking outward. And as we master that and we start hearing the same patterns from other people, right? Tony says success leaves clues. So you start, at some point, you start hearing the same thing from different people, and so we're like, okay, there must be something that I'm missing. And also we have a tendency when the people who I have met in the self-development world have a tendency to not wanting to sit still. So maybe feeling the need to always wanting to do something, learning something new. And sometimes that's a pattern we get caught on. Until we're able to let go of that and sit still with what we already know, it's when we truly then start applying it. That is the case for me. No, so I'm not sure if that's the case for you guys.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. You gotta let it permeate you. You gotta let it sink in to find its place where it gets into. And once it hits that spot, it opens it up, and you have like this light bulb moment come along. You're like, oh. So yeah, 100%. Totally agree with you there.
I've been wasting all this time in the wrong, like it's chasing all these exciting moments, and then I forgot how to plant, cultivate, harvest. Plant, cultivate. I forgot to plant these things. So back to the ecosystem analogy. The important things is, like Tony talks about, like planting a garden of positive emotions. Like we have to constantly doing that. On the other hand, like Jim Rohn talks about, like planting the seeds, like. And I think with the thoughts also, I was listening to Joe Rogan and Oz Perlman yesterday, and they were talking. Joe Rogan had this crazy analogy. He says, like, we think a lot of times that aliens would be these like biological beings with a heart and a lungs and blood and stuff. But what if like aliens are like ideas? Where like if you think about it, like you have an idea can only procreate itself whenever you pay attention to it and you focus on it, and then you spread it, and now it becomes like something huge. Like that's why they call it like a mind virus. Back to mentalism. And then what you said earlier, you were talking about the 9, like you were backing for what I said about the 9. Old stories, new stories. And then water seeks its own level, you were talking about. Whenever I could totally relate to that. I've 2 or 3 times already in my life, I've deleted my Facebook twice and completely canceled it. Email all the email addresses, and then it wasn't until that time, that discomfort where I didn't have access to certain associations, that I was forced to move on to the next level and to seek new associations that I previously didn't have. And then like you said, doing something crazy, something massive. I think Tony talks about this in one of his programs, like taking all the junk food and then like grabbing it and then throwing it in the toilet, and then like doing like a huge ritual, or like you're like, I hate you, da, da, da. And then like sometimes you gotta do something like that so you can internalize the change, because then like you're like, okay, well, you know, it's no big deal, you know, it's just like something I need to let go. But that type of language and emotion doesn't prompt you to change.
I think when you do something like that, it creates the emotion. It has to create an emotion, whatever that is. And when you create the emotion, it tags the emotion, it sets the frequency and the vibration of what it is, good, bad, or right. And when we create that emotion, because you understand, when we go through experiences in life, we remember these things purely by, most of the time, emotion. So picture this. I know each one of you has stood up somewhere and spoken about something. Now, if you were to read about a particular situation and you were to stand up on the stage and talk to somebody and explain about that situation, you're telling a story based on facts, okay, on something you had written. Whereas if you had actually experienced that situation, when you go and stand on the stage and you start to speak about that, the emotion comes back, the memories there, the pictures start playing. You are standing in that time and space when it happened, which now means your vibration and your frequency changes. This is when all these people go from this and you become a seed caster. And the words you speak break through the barriers that people have, and this is where you become the person who's bringing impact, because you're there breaking through all those barriers that people have, and you plant that seed inside and impact somebody because the emotion and the vibration that you're speaking from, which I think that's so much more powerful when you can do that.
Okay, and then one quick point that I wanted to make, just following up with, I think Andriana said, where like seminars, books, and audio are the first step. It brings you a level of awareness that you previously didn't have, which is very similar to getting a coach or encountering somebody when you were ready. Like, you know, the teacher appears when the student is ready, and then you start thinking a little bit differently, and then you get on a path. But I think this is why I like Jeff Olson in The Slight Edge, because it's really is about the simple little things you do over time that seem to make no difference in the act of doing them that lead to success. It's not about the quantum leaps. Yes, you're gonna have quantum leaps every now and then, maybe like 3 or 4 times in your life. You'll have like a big massive impact in success. However, there are people who may object to that belief and that philosophy, because they might say like it's just like the bamboo tree, where it seems like they had a quantum leap, but really it's because of those simple little things that they did over time.
I 100% agree.
Go ahead, Keith.
One of the things that you're doing here with this, the analogy that you're doing, you're planting these seeds in the garden, whether they're flowers, they're emotions, they're all sorts of things. Then you bring those into the house, and you bring other things from the other garden, the vegetables and everything into the house. What you're doing is creating a recipe where you cook basically the recipes of your life from all of these ingredients, from the emotions, from the interaction with other people and everything, and you bring that into the house and you create a recipe for what you believe is going to work for you. Now, some recipes are going to work, some recipes are not going to work. Some recipes are going to taste really good and you're going to want to experience those more than once, and you're going to repeat those. Others you're going to try once and leave a bad taste in your mouth. And you're going to reject that. You're going to say that junk food, let's not do that anymore. Let's get rid of the fried stuff and everything else and all of that sugar and salt and anything that's in excess that you shouldn't be doing.
Now we're cooking, Keith. Now we're cooking. Now we're cooking. Tell me more. Tell me.
So basically, with those recipes, that you determined your beliefs, your values through those different recipes that you've brought in. You're then going to share those with other people. And you're going to share them a little bit at a time, not necessarily you're going to bring everybody in and say, okay, here's my one recipe. This is the only time you're going to experience it. So enjoy it, because I'm never going to create this again. You very rarely, seldom do that. Like Brandon says, you're going to get up in front of people and you're going to talk to them. And you're actually going to, if you're telling a story that you have experienced yourself, you're going to show those emotions. You're going to see those pictures in your own mind that you can relate to those other people. And they are going to absorb that. There's been only once in my life that I've been in front of people and we were in such a situation that we were shocking them so much about the information we were telling them that every eye in the room was looking at. I had only experienced that once so far. But I mean, we had everyone's attention. No one was looking down at their phone. No one was fidgeting. They were staring at, and at that point it was like, I'm getting through. I'm changing these people's lives from what I'm saying to them because I have the attention. Now again, those recipes that you create, you want to share those with other people. You want to show them where you got the information from a coach or from readings someplace. You want to share that to them. But not everybody, if they take that recipe, is going to create it exactly the same way, because they've grown up with different experiences, they've grown up with different values, and they've grown up around different people, all the things that they've done.
Amazing.
You just locked it in, Keith.
You just tied it all in together.
Ain't no need. Call's over.
Hey,
That's
finished.
No, look, this is great. Look, here's a point where we can. I love this rhythm. This is my favorite thing to do, and I think there was like an NLP practitioner that used to talk about this, where you go from vague to specific to vague to specific, and then you create this dance, knowledge, and then like points, and then you can take the points and connect the points, and then I think when you go vague, you color like the picture. So you color the picture, put the points in, color it in, put the points in. I love this. So you were saying, okay, going back from what Keith said, so emotion and emotions, thoughts, actions, philosophies, all these things, we can put them all together in the house. Now here's a great question to ask. What makes, but before we come up with a recipe, we need to try out different combinations. Number one, what makes a winning combination? And even before that, how do we make sure that our process of trying things is actually a good one?
You're going to have to try that once the experiment.
It's like, again, coming back to the whole kind of chef analogy that Keith so perfectly came up with, ingredients. You know, you got the ingredients, you got to bake the cake, right? And it's not going to taste good sometimes. But here's what chefs do. They're always tasting. They're always tasting along every time they... Does it need more salt? Does it need more paprika? Does it need more this? Does it need... They're always tasting. And if somebody else gives you the recipe book and you just do it that for that, Again, you can have the instructions, which is do this, do this, do this, do this, do this. Facts tell. Experience is the key. Because you won't have the experience of the chef. I'm totally seeing what Keith's saying here. You don't have the experience of the chef, of what does this look like? What should the texture be? Is it bubbling at the right level? That's what comes with experience. So you can have it all written down. But if you're not taste testing every step that you're making, every time you do it, and again, coming back to what Andriana says, sometimes you might have to do this 2, 3, 4 times to kind of like, well, I didn't quite get the result I was looking for. This tasted horrible, but I know it tastes good because that's the recipe. But every time you go through it and you get the chef telling you, well, this is what you look for, this is what you look for, and you taste it and you get to the end, eventually you're going to get to that point where you're going to be like, oh, this tastes awesome. Now you've got the synapses which sat in your brain, not somebody else's, that now you have the experience with the ingredients. You know what to look for. You have the feel, the taste, the touch. And then when you actually eat it, now there's that experiential joy that gets locked in. You're like, I have got it.
This podcast is brought to you by Kentucky Fried Chicken, 13...
Finger licking good.
13 herbs and spices, like all joined together into a beautiful experience of fried chicken.
I expect my coupon in the mail. Come on.
That's hilarious.
Now here's another way to reframe this. Like, so just how Stephen Covey says, map is not the territory, the recipe is not the chicken. No, you need the recipe to make the chicken. However, the recipe is not the chicken. It's not the breading. It's just instructions and ingredients, an ingredient list and instructions. What has been
The facts.
Yeah, so what has been, now let's get into it a little deeper, what has been an instruction and an ingredient list that you have developed in your life, worked out for you, and even you shared it with somebody and it worked for them as well?
Okay, so here's what comes to mind. It's something I wrote for Spotlight on the Art of Gratitude. One of the things that my wife and I have done over the years is gone to Disneyland. So one of the last few times that we've been there umpteen. In fact, the point, we can't even count the number of times we've been there. And coming from Omaha, that's saying. So the last time I walked in there, I went, okay, I got to do something different. Why am I here? What is it that I'm doing? I want to have meaning to this experience that I'm walking into Disneyland. And I couldn't think of anything. And my wife was like, oh, great. What are you trying to do something to me or whatever? Quit doing your mental gymnastics stuff or whatever. She said, just get an autograph book. You haven't ever done that, like the kids were doing. When the kids went to Disneyland, get an autograph book and have the characters sign the autograph. And then it hit, what is it that makes the magic happen in Disney? I walked into one of the first shops there that I could get an autograph book. Got the autograph book, bought it, and turned around to the clerk and said, would you please sign my autograph book? What do you mean? Why do you want my autograph? I said, well, you're one of the people that make the magic happen here at Disney. And he looked at me and, okay, so he signed. And at that moment, I realized that was my journey, my purpose for being in California Adventure and Disneyland over the next couple days. I would walk up to the guy pushing the trash can and ask them, please, would you sign my book? I walked up to the gardener. I walked up to the photographer. Each one of the people that were doing the stuff that made the magic happen. And to the point where they're going to do a parade, and I'm walking up and down the parade route, getting cast members to sign my autograph. And here's this guy pushing a broom, sweeping up some popcorn that somebody had dropped and everything. He got it all cleaned up, and I walked up to him and I said, please, would you sign my autograph book? And he's looking at me like, what are you talking about? Why would you want me to sign it? I said, because you're the one that makes this magic. Tears came to his eyes. I said, no one has ever asked me for my autograph. He signed the book, have a great day. And one of the other cast members noticed what I was doing, noticed that I had made his day. So therefore, he caught me walking down the street then, and he would come up to me with this little thing. You are a citizen of the day of Disneyland because of which he gave me a little book I could wear. And I thanked him very much. But the impact that I had on the cast members that are normally not noticed behind the scene that nobody sees was my way of showing gratitude what they did for the park and for the guests that were there, because they are the ones that make the magic happen, and it impacted their day.
Just let that sink in.
That's powerful. Keith, you're a good man.
Yeah.
I try to be. My dad raised me right.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's what I get from that is the first thing that came to mind was like Gary Vee, where he talks about undervalued attention. But then the crystallized thought was like you are adding value to an undervalued asset, which is the person. You adding value, doing something that costs you just a little bit of time and effort, and it was probably really fun for you anyway, so like you didn't mind doing that. The reward was even better. You became the citizen of the day, like an unexpected magical moment, unexpected magical reward. It's mental alchemy. Andriana.
I think what Keith was stating in terms of the analogy of the recipe, I think it all starts with to loop in what Disney did. It starts with imagining that it's possible. And once you figure out that it is possible, you start working backwards from there. And as Brandon was saying, you pick the best ingredients to put in your recipe. You're not quite sure how it's going to turn out the first probably 100 times, but if you have great ingredients and you have a notion of how they work together, and you are able to imagine that what you're doing exists in your head, but it is possible. You're not trying to bring somebody back from the dead. Then at the end of the day, as you deal with the mistake and correct and give feedback from yourself and others, you're able to achieve whatever was in your mind. As Disney, right? We wouldn't have Disney if he didn't imagine it first. He saw it in his mind before the creation was invented, and so that's why we have it today. And I think working from that backwards, it's what makes.
Whoa, that's a great point. What makes the difference between a small recipe and a huge Disney-sized recipe?
Your imagination.
How do you differ between, like, the magic of thinking big to the magic of thinking small?
Yeah, I
Thank
think
you very much. I got to leave for another appointment.
Okay.
But, yeah, keep me in mind for another one of these. This is awesome.
Beautiful.
Thank you very much.
You got it. Keith has got to go. He's got to go fly in his magic carpet.
Thank you, Keith.
Thank you.
Nuggets.
Brandon, pleasure to meet you.
Nuggets. Nice meeting you too.
Okay, so magic of
I
thinking
think, too,
big.
it's
Go
your
ahead.
willingness to fail, right? It's to endure the pain of failing. Because every single time that you go try, most people don't go try out recipe. If you're going to, you imagine a cake and you want to create a cake that is super delicious, you're not going to start out by building a cake for a wedding. You start out by testing out the cake itself. So you start small with small ingredients and then you scale. So if you are able to endure the pain and the lack of reward from trying out those recipes the first, I don't know, maybe 100 times that you do it, depending upon what you're doing and if it has been done before, then you can from there think big. The bigger the thing that you're trying to accomplish, the more tolerance to failure and pain and rejection and all these negative emotions, and the more resilient. My definition of resilient, going from the negative emotion back to neutral, then the more resilience you have to have in order to dream big, because big dreams, the downside to it is generally they come with a lot more risk.
I love that. And then this podcast is brought to you by neuroscience, exploring the brain. It brings me to this. I've been reading this textbook, and then how she said that your resilience in failing. There's a part here in page 16 that says that first, the mindset is preconceived notions. And then major breakthroughs are sometimes, this isn't a neuroscience textbook, major breakthroughs are sometimes made when old observations are reinterpreted in a new light.
We've all been told that, you gotta fail for. Growth comes in pain. Only when we feel that pain is the time for us to break free and grow to the next level. But I think what happens is so many people are so fixated on the success, and what they're looking at is just the success, and that's what they're trying to achieve. That we have to understand. I think a lot of entrepreneurs who stay as entrepreneurs for a good period of time reconciled exactly what Adriana said. I am going to fail. I am going to get back up, because when I get back up, I've left the old me on the floor. I got up as a different person. And I've got up with more experience, more understanding, more knowledge. Let me go again. Okay, let me fail again, but let me fail at a higher level, because then when I fall on the floor again, I'm leaving the old me of that point on the floor, and I'm getting up as the new person. So it's like a consistent rebirth. But when we understand that there's consistent failures that we have to go through in order to get this to the success, I think your average person is sitting there in the position saying, I want to go from where I am to success and kind of bypass all the failure. And the moment they have a small measure of failure is where everything crumbles for them. And they're like, this is it, game over. I'm not going to try this again. I tried that once, it didn't work. But then everybody who's been really successful has tried it not just once and said it didn't work. He said he tried it, it didn't work. What did I do wrong? How do I get better? How do I overcome that situation to get better and better and better? And when you're getting paid money, you know, you're getting paid the big bucks to solve bigger problems, but it means that you have bigger level of understanding, experience. But I think this is what most of society is afraid of, and you know, Andriana, you nailed it on the head completely, that it's that failure that we've got to get good with. You know, I don't want to go to a place where somebody's teaching me about success. I want to go to somewhere, you know, I do want to, don't get me wrong, but I also want to go to a place where somebody's going to teach me about failure. If you can teach me about failure and about how to bypass the landmines that are there, that's something I'd pay money for. I'll be like, show me that, because I know that you went through all of that to get there, right? So I think she said that so eloquently, and that's 100% correct.
I think the main ingredient on that, Brandon, it's resiliency, right? Getting back to base. Because not only, I think at some point in my life when I started my first business, I was really able to get up once I had a failure, and it didn't take me long. It truly, now I'm in my third business at this point, and it truly isn't just the failure, it's also the success and your ability to hatch from the outcome. I think the first business I created wasn't a business that I considered it was a business for me. I was creating this business for my loved one. I was like, this is the thing that I want you to have. So it wasn't as personal to me as when I was in the second business. And so learning how to get back to base, whether it was an exciting, we got phenomenal news and we wanted to go celebrate and we didn't want to do the grind anymore. We didn't want to do the things that we knew needed to do to get results because we were celebrating the success. And the same thing happened when you're experiencing a negative emotion. So I think that when you're not in balance, whether you're experiencing huge negative emotions or huge positive emotions, have almost the same impact. You just tend to enjoy one more than the other, but they derail you. They change your focus from where you need to be, for where you need to be doing. That's one part of the equation. The other part is how close to me this thing that I'm trying to accomplish, right? So if in my failure or my success is a reflection of me, my personality, my value, then I may have to do some mind shifting. I have to change something within. And what is my willingness to do that?
Mind shifting, yeah. So preconditions, and then I'll say this point, and then we'll start wrapping up here, because we're almost at the hour, 90-minute mark. Preconceived notion is the mindset, and then what that sparked in me earlier was, if preconceived notions are the mindset, then there had to be a point of conception before, when they were conceived, right? So now, how do we conceive new notions so that will take us to the next level instead of the notions we already have that have led us here? We constantly have to conceive. And how do you conceive? You have sex. I knew you like that.
I think the recipe to that was already stated somewhere between what Keith was saying before. You gotta figure out it's possible. So there's no way to conceive if you don't have anyone to conceive with.
I think Lil Wayne said it best. Fuck the world, feed it beans.
Feed it beans. Oh my god, this is too funny.
Okay, how can we start putting this together, right? Let's narrow down, because we went really big, and this is a great conversation to continue another day. However, let's bring it back to the garden and the farm and the house. How can we take this and close it in a way that will make it useful to you, for me, for anybody else that starts listening to this in the end, that they can, they have an oh fuck moment, and they said, wow, okay, and now they have that mind shift that you're talking about.
I'll give it a shot.
Go ahead.
I think it starts with identifying what is it that you want, the idea, right? Whether it's a great relationship, whether it's a business, whether it's a social life, whether it's a healthy body, whatever it is that you're seeking, it starts with imagining that it's possible, right? The goal. You have to have clarity as to what is it that you are trying to achieve. It starts there. You don't have to have all the clarity. It doesn't have to be perfectly clear, because as you get into the path, you will gain more clarity. But you do have to have a centralized idea of what it is that you want to accomplish, so that you know when you get there. And from there, you take a step back and you start planning the right ingredients, as you were saying, in the garden. So if the goal is to have a healthy body, you start looking at what does a healthy body needs, right? What ingredients does it need? If your goal is a business, all right, where am I at today, and what do I need in order to get to where I want? What is the gap? How do I find the bridge? Once you have some of the ingredients, you start experimenting, right? Am I able to do this alone? Do I need other people in order to do it? If your goal is to have a phenomenal relationship, you may need other people to do that. And so then you start questioning yourself, what are the values that I need along with these ingredients to make what I want to make? And that is the mindset, right? That's the mindset. And the other part is, in order for this thing to work, what are the things that I need to do in order to get to the baseline, in order to increase my resilience, which in most instances is just doing the thing over and over and over again. So if your goal is, I want to have a phenomenal relationship, then you gotta see what needs to shift in your mindset, and then put that into practice enough time, do enough repetition in order to make it work. If the goal is to have a phenomenal body, then you go figure out what are the ingredients, what are the things that you need to do, and then you do it enough. There is enough repetition in order for you to create the resilience for it to become natural.
And the people. Who are the people? I think that's an overlooked thing sometimes. We forget that sometimes we have to reach out and ask for help to certain people that can get that for us. Brandon.
Yeah, I think Adriana kind of laid it out nicely. I took some notes and just kind of things that I've had to do myself. First, again, you got to have the vision. You got to have a vision first, the idea, the vision. Then you got to set the end game. Okay, what is the end goal? What is it I'm trying to achieve? What is it I'm trying to do? What is it I'm trying to accomplish? Then you got to reverse engineer it. What does that look like? So you have your main goals, so you can visualize it and understand, well, these are the milestone goals, and you set your primary goals in between to get to those main goals, so you understand the work that is going to be needed to achieve what it is you want to achieve, whatever that's going to be. I think the next key thing is, once you can visualize that and you see what it needed to take to make that happen, now you've got to ask yourself one of the most important questions. Why do you want that? What's your why? Because if money is the end game, then you're going to be poor, right? You have a far higher chance of failure because you're not connected to it. And I think Adriana said that as well. You've got to work out what your why is. Why am I doing this? Why do I want it? Again, it's going to permeate you and be part of you. You're going to be so, again, using one of Adriana's words, resilient, that nothing's going to stop you. There's going to be nothing in front of you to stop you. You've got to understand as well, you've got to ask yourself, what am I willing to sacrifice? Because there's going to be sacrifice if you really want it. What are you willing to sacrifice to get what it is you want, whatever that is, okay? How long are you willing to give yourself? Because if you say, well, I'm going to give myself 6 months to do this. Now you can look at, is this real, is this not? If you turn around and say, okay, well, I'm going to give myself a good 5 years. If you say, I'm giving myself 10 years, or I'm not not going to stop until it's done, okay? How long are you going to give yourself, okay? Next thing is, who are you going to be around? Again, touching on your point, Joe. Who are you going to be around? Who are you going to call on for help? Who are you going to call on for knowledge? Where are you going to go to gain the information that you need to, that you don't already have? Or people that are going to, that you're going to hang around, that are going to help lift you up to that level that you can handle what it is you need to achieve. And then I think the final thing is, once you understand all of that, make the decision. So many of us have the plan, but we never make the decision. And when we choose to make that decision, and it's real and it's done, we know the end game. We know the end of the book. It's just now, let's go and put it into action.
Yes, let me put those two things together real quick. Based on your 2 points, and I love this. This is like building. You see, like, we don't need like tangible things. We're building on top of concepts, and I think this is had a very good foundation, and then we built layers on top of this home. And I think, so to your points, I think that in order to have resilience, you need to find out the why you want something. But then I think to one up you, Brandon, we need to we need to convert our wants into our needs. And I think there's a couple of phrases that will define this. And I think I forget who says this, but when your want for money becomes as necessary as oxygen, you will get it because it's necessary for you.
It becomes a definiteness of purpose.
So I think that's a great point to end right there. We need to be able to convert our goal. If we really care about something, we have to get to the point to where we feel that we need it. Because if we don't feel we need something, we're not going to work hard, and we're not going to persevere and have resilience to do the hard things that need to be done. Because everything worthwhile is hard. It's not easy. All right. So with that being said, let's touch down on one word or phrase that will define this conversation or this Zoom for you.
Resilient.
I think mine would be, kind of coupled along with the resilience is really definiteness of purpose. When you have definiteness of purpose and you know that you know that you know, it feels resilient, and I have it, and I'm not stopping until it's done. And that could be whatever it is. It doesn't have to be, hey, I'm going to climb Mount Everest. It could be something just within your relationship. It could be something with your children. It could be a goal that you want to achieve. It could be anything. I know a lot of people think about money, materialism, and all that stuff. It's not. It's whatever that personal goal is, whatever they want to achieve. It could be, hey, I want to learn how to, we're coming back to the recipe. I want to learn how to bake this cake. I want to learn how to make this dish. I want to cook for my family. I want to be able to buy a house. I want to be able to buy this car. I want to be able to learn how to read certain books. It could be anything. And I think if you apply these strategies to whatever it is you want to do, it will bring you a sense of belief that you can truly achieve whatever you put your mind to. And once that flame is turned on, it rewires your brain for you to understand, if I can do this, no matter how big or how small it is, I can do anything, because I just proved to myself that I can. So when we turn on that flame of belief, it can never be turned off.
That's so powerful. The last thing would be from let's say anybody that wrote a book or did an audio or through a seminar or just gave us advice. We can take their recipe and use the recipe, and by using the recipes we can learn how to bake the cake. But after a while you're probably gonna get bored of baking the same cake, but you've already learned how to make a cake with that recipe. Now you can modify the recipe and throw other things on top of it. Or once you become an expert or a master at making the cake, you can start from scratch and develop your own recipe that has none of those things included, none of those ingredients,
and make it uniquely you.
Boom!
Something else.
Ah!
I love
It's over. All right. Woo! Woo!
I love it.
Well, hey, thanks for joining me, Brandon, Andriana. Thanks for coming again and again and again. And I'm so happy. This has been the best one yet. And stay tuned, because on the next one we will have the best and the most exciting Zoom in the history of the entire galaxy universe, existence.
Don't you just love his energy?
I love it. It's contagious. I want to go punch a rhino.
Let's go. All right, guys.
Come on, guys.
I'll see you on the next one.
Meeting you, Andriana. Thank you for your insights and your nugget.
Likewise, Brandon. Look forward to seeing you again.
Definitely blessings.
Speak truth, move in silence. 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 America, hand me the mic. Toast to the underdog, fire in the fight. Pull up and slide, still moving like a mogul. Been broke, been global, 38 stamp total. Zoom calls lit, whole squad on grow mode. Tony said walk fire, now I walk in goat mode. Wrote books, dropped tracks, did storm sales. Now I'm talking to the future through. Hey, beach walks in the morning, truth in the silence. Seen 45 states, dance with the islands. Never sold my soul, just offer some guidance. Got a Zoom group vibing off radical kindness. Used to knock doors, now I knock mines. Still spit gems like I do it full time. Turn trauma to gold, scars into scripts. Turn emotional damage to worldwide flips. GPT, my sidekick, father, my agency. Met God in the grind, now I'm moving gracefully. I ain't rich yet, but I move like it's done. Cause my story's just starting. I already won, wrote my will in the notebook. Legacies locked, grew through the breakdown. Pressure made the pop. They can't box me. I broke all the locks trying to stop my shit.